Princeton, is where it always is in this place in Anacostia, down the road from the University of Maryland. But in the post-war era, there was a tremendous amount of development. Baby boomers coming back, and then in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s, we had a new form of sprawl. More asphalt, more pavement, more shopping centers, more roads. This again created the same sort of effect that it did hundreds of years earlier. Now, instead of just sediment coming into the river, we're having trash, tremendous amounts of trash coming to the Anacostia River, pollution from all these sites around it. Prince George's is, a lot of the areas are EJ communities, a lot of industrial sites right up against working class residential areas, so a lot of pollution, coming in. Sewage issues, we all know that stuff. But also a tremendous volume of water. So it's like a huge bathtub. Back in the day when this was a forested area, a raindrop would hit a tree, it would get soaked into the leaf, or it would go into the ground and go back into the water table. Now it doesn't do that. It's like a huge bathtub. So water from all over the place is coming in real fast through these roofs and parking lots and roads, down into the storm drains, and we drive past and we walk past and we never notice them. But they're there, and they're very significant because they collect these tremendous millions and millions and millions of gallons of water and ship it all in a super underground superhighway to the lowest point in the region. Lowest point in the region is, as it was in Adam Francis Plummer's day, Edmonston. So, with the severity, now I know there's a lot of stuff happening here in my talk, but so we also know that storms are getting worse, right? Snowstorms are getting more severe, microbursts, hurricanes. So we're also getting more volumes of water coming in faster, which historically, in the last 15 years, had really overwhelmed Edmonston. We could not get the water through the town into the river, because remember, in the 1950s and 60s, the Army Corps of Engineers built this levee to keep the water inside the river, but also kept water from getting to the river. It was all channelized to this little town called Edmonston in this little pond. So the water had a harder time getting to the river and would build up into the town and overtake the town. So for 4 years in a row, in the early 2000s, we flooded. One year we had almost 60 homes underwater. Tremendous amount of damage. And like I said, a lot of our folks are working class, so one-story houses, a lot of folks renting out basements to other people. And in a basement apartment during a flood, you lose everything. And several families did lose absolutely everything. And a lot of them being immigrants or not really knowing the system, didn't have renter's insurance, did not have proper lease agreements with their landlords, and truly lost everything. So a real EJ issue. Not in the sense of air pollution or toxics, although those did exist and do exist, but from just sheer stormwater from irresponsible sprawl. So our participation, and we're talking about participation of folks, was very hands-on, bailing out homes, and I could tell you the drama just about getting through the floods another time. But we learned firsthand that everything is connected. So the parking lot here at Stamp Student Union affects the little immigrant house down in Edmonston. It does. It goes, a raindrop here will end up down the road, and we'll be none the wiser until there's a problem. So we really took to heart the fact that we all have to be responsible for what we do and how we build and how we spend our money and resources. So we decided, as a town and as a mayor, we do a lot of mundane things. Not a lot of parades, very few press conferences or banquets in a town of 1,400 people, smaller than a high school. But it's really a lot of mundane stuff. It's trash, it's potholes, it's street lights out, stuff like that. But all that stuff has to be taken care of. So every street, every sidewalk has an expiration date. It has to be fixed, it has to be replaced. And we decided based on this experience that, hey, what other people do matter, it affects somebody, that we're going to try to take full responsibility for what we build and how we build it. So we, working with a lot of really intelligent folks, some of them here at the University of Maryland, designers, engineers, grassroots folks, great mix of people. We reconceptualized our Main Street from top to bottom. How can we build the most sustainable, responsible 21st century street possible? And we came up with a concept that we implemented. And our concept was east to west, top to bottom, everything is going to be state-of-the-art, sustainable. So, like coming from top to bottom, We replaced kind of the shrubby, ornamental, trashy trees that we had along the street with native, big canopy trees. Back in the day, trees grew. This was a heavily forested area. Trees were 40% taller than you see them around now, just because of the richness of the soil and the availability of water. So we replaced that with large growth canopy native trees. It's really important. Then we came down to the street lights. Prince George's, as you know, especially near Beltway communities who struggle with public safety, there's a lot of streets that don't have adequate lighting, which creates a dangerous environment. Also, street lights are awfully expensive. They're tremendous electricity expense. Very powerful lights kept on all night long. We don't do that in our house for good reason, but we have to do it on the streets. So we replaced our lights with super high efficiency LED lighting, which ended up cutting our bill 70%. Furthermore, instead of purchasing, again, everything is connected, instead of purchasing typically through PEPCO from coal-fired power plants, we entered into wind power purchase agreements, which at the time when we entered into the agreement saved another 10% on our bill. So taxpayers were really enjoying brighter lights cheaper. And if you ever drive down the street at night, it's like a ball field. It's so bright, it's so safe, it's a really warm, welcoming place. Down to the next level, the street and sidewalks. We made sure the sidewalks were wide enough to handle wheelchairs and strollers and everything, because we want our streets to be a place, which they are, where people connect with their world, connect with their neighbors. It's not just a way of a place for us to get from A to B, to get to the shopping mall, to get to school, to get to work. Streets and sidewalks are where we interact. So we really tried to think of it less as a street and a sidewalk, but really as a park, as a common place. It belongs to the public. So we wanted this to be a place where people mix. So we have benches, and we have little pocket parks, and really great landscaping to encourage people to come out. Bike lanes, we put bike lanes in. And then the next level, and this is probably the most important level, given our history, was all of our stormwater, or 90% of the water that hits our streets and sidewalks, is handled at the spot where it hits, or within 20 feet of it. Just like back in the day before the farming sprawled, we try to mimic the natural process where water goes right into the ground. Not into the storm drain, not to be shipped off to be somebody else's problem downstream in Ward 7 or 8 or 6, or somewhere farther out in the bay, but all of our water goes either A, is absorbed into the asphalt. We purchase special permeable asphalt where the water drips right through the concrete, or it's diverted into a rain garden, which, if you just drove by, you'd be like, oh, that's a nice little piece of landscaping there, but on every block we have a rain garden that's built into the side of the street that takes all the water. And that's really important because it cuts down on the localized flooding, it cuts down on the pollution that we're shipping off into the river, and it creates really the sense that we're taking full responsibility for what we're doing. Now, although this was a great transformation in sustainability, it has begun a transformation in our economy. Through this process, we created 70 green jobs. And a lot of these jobs, unlike Matthew, these were not new jobs. These were old jobs that have been greened. So you always need concrete pourers, you always need asphalt, steam rollers, you always need streetlight technicians, but now they're doing green products, they're purchasing green products from local green companies. And I'm also proud to say that more than 60% of all of our spending went to local minority firms. And by local, I mean within 25 miles, and minority or women-owned firms. So everything is connected. What we were able to prove, and I'm wrapping up, I see you standing up, you stop, but don't think I don't. So what we were able to prove is that we're a tiny little working class community with hardly any tax base. We were able to raise our own funds, even though we did get funds from the Obama administration later on. We were able to prove that a little tiny working class community can do something great, can be truly green and sustainable, just like Seattle, Portland, Chicago, any other place. We're a working class community. Less than 10% of our residents have a college degree, but we have been an example. And since then, the county has put almost $20 million into green streets. A bill has recently passed, Prince George's County Council establishing green complete streets. State Highway Administration is looking at, and other jurisdictions are also trying to do the stuff that we were able to show that we could do. And I also want to say that it was a team effort, because everything is connected. So the spirit of the plumbers and the spirit of the founders, and this, just making the best out of a tough situation was really alive and well. So I look forward to working with you, answering any questions. But I was really pleased to be a part of this process and be there at the right time and space to do something I think we can all be proud of.
Let's take a round of applause. Okay, we only have a small amount of time, and we need to do two things. One, I want to be able to give you guys a chance to ask those additional questions, but then we also have the responsibility of capturing some things that we'd like to report out in the larger session that's going to follow ours. So, any burning questions? Yes, we'll start over here.
Oh, with the action for the whole group.
Yes. No, that's right. Go right ahead.
Okay. So, I'm a physician, and I've been involved in a private practice, but also concerned about waste. I don't think I'm going to talk all this wonderful stuff, but first I found out the biggest medical waste incinerator in the country was right outside in Baltimore, Hawkins Point, Baltimore. And I've been involved with issues of nuclear waste, like Fukushima, Calvert Cliffs. Their nuclear power plants had 100 Hiroshimas sitting in spent fuel pools. And once again in Baltimore, right in 21226, an area where the biggest medical waste incinerator is, they're trying to put another industrial hazardous waste incinerator. And here's where green gets complicated, because it's called green. And in fact, the schools, you can have schools next to it because they call it an energy producer, not an incinerator. And the same old community is getting this stuff, and I'm finding as a physician that the small particulate matter that gets right into our lungs, our bloodstreams, our brain, whether it's just PM or it's connected with dioxin, other chemicals, metals, and so we're creating waste, and we're calling it green. And it'd be great to have also a concept coming out here is that could this be an area with zero waste? Other communities have done it. And that gets jobs, and those are truly green jobs. So, at any rate, I would like to see us incorporate, because it's from birth to death, all the stuff, how do we make it green jobs, green community, because these efforts may be shifting the dirty waste back to, a lot of times it's Baltimore, and it's a community with real environmental justice issues.
Yes, and if someone wants to respond, if not, I can respond.
Well, I was going to say that, the nuclear waste is the harder one to solve, as you well know. But in the meantime, there's a waste that we all participate in, which is food waste, that all of us can control. We're spending more, we're throwing away more on food that we never got to eat, and it's spoiled in our refrigerators. And we're treating it as a waste, and it's destroying the landfills when it actually could be a valuable product that people are using. So the example I would say, which is an entrepreneurial one, is the DC compost cow. And so they, you pay $8 a month, they'll pick up what, you have to have separated it. But at the end of 9 months, they will give you back your compost, or you can donate it to a school garden. But what it did is it diverted it from the landfill. Somebody's making a business, somebody's collecting that. They're saving money for restaurants, and they're saving money for homeowners. And somebody's starting their business. So I think, there's a cool little micro example of thinking about all of our own wastes.
And that goes back to the innovation aspect that I referenced before. I would like to share a couple quick things, and then we're going to move forward. One, green chemistry. There's a movement in green chemistry to address some of the things that you're talking about. And I'd like to also introduce you to a number of physicians who are focusing on environmental justice issues. They're working on a number of different things, so it may be a good network just for you to know that exists and maybe be a part of. Let me go to folks who haven't asked the question yet. Yes?
Yeah. I was wondering if some of you could talk more specifically about job training and funding for green job training that actually leads to certification. I know you mentioned something about lead certification. I know through the brownfield program we have funding nonprofit organizations could apply for to bring in job training if we're working in some brownfield areas. I'm asking, we have a lot of brownfield, and we want to employ local youth as well as others who need the skill set and the training to then be able to come back when the local government decides to with the brownfield, they can hire from within.
Right, so Civic Works in Baltimore are a good example.
I'm just Virginia.
Okay.
I'm in Newport News.
Okay,
So, any more, I guess, on
you all-
national
Yeah,
level?
well, no, I was going to say that, well, yeah, you can, EPA puts out an annual round of brownfields training grants.
which aren't out yet, but should be later this calendar year.
And there are other, and also through EPA, but even through some of the other agencies, there are these training grant opportunities, and one of the things that's very important that you're focusing on is the training, because a lot of people think that folks can just walk onto the jobs and do them, but they certifications and things are required. So those are ways to do that. We had an opportunity to work with a labor department program called the Job Corps, and it was a local Job Corps center. And what we did was they already had plumbing, electrical, all of the trades, but we worked with them to infuse green into their curriculum, so that now the plumber was learning about how geothermal and stormwater management works with, that plumbing training or that HVAC, or even the concrete or the masonry area, learned about the pervious concretes and things of that nature. So, but go to that EPA site, they'll give you some information.
Let me share something else real quickly. It's tough for me to be moderator. I'm usually sitting over there, so I get to share, and it drives me crazy when I'm standing here. So there's an organization of students in Massachusetts who created their own organization called Leadbusters. They started when they were actually 14 to 16 years old. And what they do is they noticed that there were high lead levels that were happening inside their community. They got together and they started to learn more about phytoremediation, other types of remediation processes, and started their own business to address the issues that are happening inside their community. So that's one. That's real short. I'll get you the information on it. Two, just like Brother Ortiz shared with us, there's a community called in Spartansburg, South Carolina. There's an organization called Regenesis. Some of you might know that story. They started off with a $20,000 small grant. Many of the things that Mr. Ortiz was talking about, able to leverage over $300 million worth of resources and changes inside of their community. We have information on that and talk step by step about how they were able to do that. So there are numbers of examples of how people are addressing issues inside their community, creating economic entities inside the community, worker training as a part of the process, and creating their own jobs, and getting involved in the political system to make sure that real change stays inside their community. So I thought I'd share that real quickly, and I'll get you information.
One other item on funding and information. This lady has a set. I brought a set of books here. There is the interagency. Would you hold yours up, please? There's the Interagency Working Group on Environmental Justice has been reinvigorated. It was a Clinton executive order. And federal agencies have come together and created these two documents. One is a directory, which gives you actual names and telephone numbers of folks in agencies that you can call if you have questions. The other one provides you information about both funding for actual grants, but also information on technical assistance that might be available. I only brought 5 sets. I didn't know there'd be that much interest, but I do have a sign-up sheet here that you can sign up before you leave.
Okay, we have some other questions, and we're going to try and, if your question is relevant to recommendations, we're going to tie that in, so please.
It is.
Please do.
So,
Yes.
so I had one that's just a straight recommendation, one that's a recommendation and a discussion. So the irony in listening about community gardening is I started a community garden along New Hampshire Avenue for those of you who live locally. And we asked the University of Maryland Ag Extension Service here if they would be willing to test the soil, because folks wanted to grow veggies and edibles. And the folks at the Ag Extension Service here said, sorry, we just recently closed our soil testing units, so we can't tell you whether to be able to plant or not.
University of Massachusetts Extension Service.
So But just, it would be great if there were also a more local resource, which is right here, for the state of Maryland to do soil testing.
Well,
So-
there is one I can mention to you at University of the District of Columbia. So you can check with them. They're local.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Your recommendation is, I want her to capture that.
Is for the University of Maryland to reopen its ability to do soil testing for toxicity for Maryland groups and Maryland communities.
Okay.
But it costs to run a lab, and so what you have to then do is get the community gardeners, like who your gardens and did you test your soil? Because they can't run a lab if people aren't, requiring and requesting those services.
Have you tried ag extension? Because there should
Yes,
be
I
ag
did.
extension. Okay.
I did, and they're the
Once a
ones
year?
who said,
Okay.
sorry, we can't, we just closed the lab.
Okay.
So, but the other bigger recommendation is the Purple Line. And the Purple Line comes through, communities throughout Maryland. And I know some of us have been struggling that there's been very little attention to the EJ components of the Purple Line.
Yes.
In terms of health, economics, et cetera. So I had a question for the panel about what are those of you who relate to the Purple Line doing about that, and a larger recommendation is coming out of this, it would be great to have some sort of network of people working on the EJ aspects of the Purple Line.
Okay. So sort of transportation equity type things.
But more than that, because it's affecting affordable housing, it's
Got it.
affecting displacement of immigrant-owned businesses.
Anyone on the panel?
In terms of the Purple Line, there are a couple of organizations that are taking an active role in, I should say, I don't know if they're opposing, but they're trying to mitigate some of what's happening, and that is Green Bethesda. And there's an organization that's just started in Silver Spring called Green Silver Spring.
I'm aware of both of those.
Okay.
Again, they don't have a strong EJ.
Okay, I was going to say, I'm not sure how much they're doing with the EJ component, but some of the people that are involved with those groups, particularly the more citizen activists, I would think would know what was happening with that. And certainly, those are issues. Montgomery County, particularly the county council, is very responsive to citizen input in some degree.
I've been working with the county council for 2 years on this.
So the other suggestion I have is there's this thing called health impact assessment. Dr. Clifford Mitchell with the health department is very interested in HIA, and essentially that's looking at the health impact of different kind of variable decisions. And so they might be interested in or have already started doing something that will actually help inform some of those decisions. And they are really, encouraging and they're getting, CDC and Robert Wood Johnson Foundation have been funding HIAs. And so that might be another avenue to get all of those discussions out in the open.
Yeah, there's a lot of funding that's coming up too.
I'm wondering, like the state of Maryland Revitalization program is focusing on the EJ and economics pieces of the program.
I don't have a great answer for you. Sorry, somebody else want to?
No, go ahead.
I don't have a great answer for you on that. The most I can say is, yes, there are discussions about affordable housing preservation around transferring and development sites. That is the biggest concern I heard in regards to Purple Line coming and what's going to happen, especially since all of these master plans surrounding these Purple Line stuffs really do encourage density and completely change the zoning, and there aren't a whole lot of affordable housing components within these plans. There's only mention of it, no real strategies to how it will be attained. So in terms of DHCD, yes, of course, there's interest in preserving or ensuring that there is affordable housing within walking distance to these stops, but specifically what's going to happen, I don't have.
That's why I'm suggesting we get
There you go.
together.
And one of the outcomes, proposed outcomes from this conference is actually the creation of sort of an environmental justice, social justice network that will be a part of this. For those of you who know environmental justice, there are major networks around the country, but there has not necessarily been one sort of in our area that has sort of a formal structure. So that's one of the things folks are trying to move to, is to pull all these great minds, great ideas together, and to be able to have a voice that's able to, engage in a number of processes. Yes.
Well, one thing that ties into Act 1 is waste and energy facilities, otherwise known as traditional incinerators, and try to, in my opinion, avoid doing this because it's a tremendous waste of resources. A better approach would be to remember the idea of reduce, reuse, and recycle, as opposed to making it more toxic.
Well, I want to go back to something Mr. Ortiz said, and I've heard this before from Professor Bundy Bryant at the University of Michigan, and that is to mimic nature, our processes that we have. If we try to the best of our ability to do that, then it eliminates a number of the problems that we currently have. So that's something that we should definitely consider. I want to ask some of the youth that are in the room if there's something that you'd like to share also, because I want to make sure that you're captured as a part of the process. So that's my prerogative. Yes.
One aspect of sustainability I feel that again is everything's connected most is employee-owned enterprises, cooperatives. I think a lot more of alternative business models I think are an essential component to bring into green jobs and such. Sustainability is not just about the environment, it's about the socioeconomics of new businesses, and more worker-owned enterprises are essential to taking community factors into consideration while at the same time running a viable business.
Exactly. Thank you for that. That's powerful. That's very
And
powerful.
we have one of the leading groups doing that in the United States right here, connected to the University of Maryland.
Okay, and they are?
The Democracy Collaborative.
Democracy
There,
Collaborative. Okay. All right. And then,
Well, I just wanted to mention one other thing in reference to the jobs, especially from the Newport News aspect. My colleague, Ortiz, talked about the installation of these features. And one thing that I like to always put out to everyone, all of these various installations, whether they're green roofs or whether they're all kinds of green infrastructure done, the most sustainable part of all of that is installed one time, but the sustainable part of it is the maintenance. The maintenance is one of those things that is probably where it is the easiest access by those who are unskilled or underskilled and have the greatest ability to be skilled up over short periods of time to be engaged in that work. So keep that in mind in reference to job creation, and especially green job creation.
it's getting loud, so can we give them a round of applause, everyone? I want to definitely thank our panel for participating with us, taking time out of your weekend. I want to thank you all also for being here. It shows your dedication and how serious these issues actually are. So I look forward to working with everyone as we move forward with this new network that's being built. So thank you so much.
I'm not used to standing.